8 points, 2 assists, 6 shot attempts. That is the stat line everybody saw. And just like that, the internet had its verdict. Quiet night, invisible, taken out of the game. But here is the thing nobody wants to talk about. Team USA cruised to a 91-48 win over hosts Puerto Rico in the FIBA World Cup qualifying tournament. And the woman at the center of it all barely needed to score to control every single possession. This was not just another blowout. This was a masterclass in something most casual fans will never understand: basketball gravity. The idea that one player can warp an entire defense simply by existing on the floor. And when that defense cracks, when rotations collapse and help defenders lose their footing, everyone else walks through the wreckage. Paige Bueckers led Team USA with 16 points. Angel Reese had 10 points and 13 rebounds. Those numbers did not appear out of nowhere. They were a direct consequence of a defense that sold its soul trying to stop one player. And the craziest part? That player was coming back from one of the most brutal injury stretches in recent WNBA history. A groin tear, a bone bruise, 8 months off the court. What happened next was not what anyone expected. And the real story had nothing to do with the box score. To understand, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. Why this game mattered so much, you have to rewind, not just a few weeks, all the way back to the summer of 2024. That is when the biggest controversy in women's basketball exploded. One of the biggest stories in the women's basketball world in 2024 was Indiana Fever superstar Caitlin Clark's exclusion from the Team USA 5x5 women's basketball roster for the Paris Olympics. This supposed snub sent shockwaves through the entire sport and sparked a ton of takes and debates about whether Clark was worthy, why she didn't secure a spot, and what her inclusion would have meant for women's basketball. The committee said it was about experience. Clark was a rookie. The roster was loaded with veterans. But the backlash was immediate and intense. Even Casey Wasserman, president of the 2028 Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee, called it a missed opportunity because she's clearly a generational talent at a time when the world was ready for it. Now, here is the part most people still do not know. In USA Today reporter Christine Brennan's new book titled On Her Game, Brennan reports that Clark actually turned down an offer to compete for Team USA in Paris on another team, the US Women's 3x3 team. The answer from Clark and her team was simple: no. She did not want to play 3x3 basketball at the Olympics. She only wanted the real thing, the 5x5 roster. Her message was clear. She was not going to settle. And publicly, she kept it classy. "I think it just gives you something to work for," Clark said. "It's a dream. Hopefully one day I can be there. I think it's just a little more motivation." You remember that? Then came 2025, the year that was supposed to be her revenge tour. Instead, it turned into a nightmare. Fever star Caitlin Clark has been limited to 13 games because of injuries and hasn't played since July 15. She only played 13 times due to a left quad strain that kept her out for 3 weeks, a left groin injury that sidelined her for 2 weeks, and now a right groin injury. Clark also suffered a bone bruise at a later date during her recovery process. Clark never missed a game in her collegiate career or her first year in the WNBA, and now, suddenly, she could not stay on the floor. The player who was supposed to change the sport was watching from the sideline. "I had hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season," Clark wrote. "I spent hours in the gym every day with the singular goal of getting back out there. Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I am feeling. 8 months. No games, no competition, nothing but rehab and uncertainty." And then, out of nowhere, the call came. Team USA, the FIBA World Cup qualifiers. The chance she had been waiting for. But the question on everybody's mind was simple. After everything she had been through, could Caitlin Clark still be Caitlin Clark? The answer came fast. Almost too fast. Caitlin Clark played a starring role as the USA basketball team opened their FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament 2026 campaign with a 110-46 win over Senegal on Wednesday in San Juan, Puerto Rico. This was not a timid return. This was not a player easing back in. This was a statement. In her very first game wearing the senior national team jersey, Clark dropped 17 points and 12 assists. Let that sink in. 8 months off, coming back from multiple injuries, and she posts a near triple-double in her debut. The doubters who had spent the entire offseason wondering if she could recover, silent. The people who said the injuries might have changed her game, nowhere to be found. And this was not a situation where she was just filling up stats against weak competition. Besides Clark, rising stars Angel Reese, Paige Bueckers, Sonia Citron, and Kiki Iriafen also made their senior national team debuts. This roster was full of talent. Clark did not need to carry the load, but she made it clear from the opening quarter that she was here to run things. The chemistry was already visible, and there was a reason for that. 11 of the 12 players representing the US in Puerto Rico had just finished playing at Unrivaled. Whether they were teammates or opponents, they believed that time together lent itself to building quicker chemistry on Team USA. Head coach Kara Lawson said, "There's some synergy there." That synergy showed up everywhere. 28 of the team's 34 field goals were assisted, and it committed 13 turnovers. This was a group that moved the ball like they had been playing together for years, not days. But the Senegal game was the warm-up, the appetizer. The real test was coming the very next night. Puerto Rico, a hostile crowd, a team that had spent all day studying how to slow Clark down, and a game that would reveal something far more interesting than points or assists. Because what happened in San Juan was not just about Clark scoring. It was about what happens to an entire defense when one player occupies so much mental space that the whole structure collapses. And that collapse? It started the second Clark stepped onto the floor. Puerto Rico had a plan. Honestly, it was a smart plan. They watched the Senegal tape. They saw the 17 points. They saw the 12 assists. They understood that if Clark was allowed to cook with even a little space, the game would be over before the second quarter. So they made a decision, a calculated, deliberate decision. Do not let Caitlin Clark beat us. The zone shaded her direction. Help defenders came early. The coverage stretched way beyond normal comfort zones. Every time Clark touched the ball, 2 defenders were already reacting. She shot 2 of 6 from the field and 1 of 5 from three-point territory. On the surface, it looked like the plan worked. But here is where most people stop watching and start scrolling. They see the stat line and assume the defense won. They could not be more wrong, because the moment Puerto Rico committed that hard to one threat, they left the entire rest of the floor exposed. The zone got stretched thin. Rotations became delayed. Help defenders were a step slow getting back to their assignments. The middle of the floor opened up like a highway with no traffic. The United States opened the game on a 16-3 run before taking a 24-7 lead at the end of the first quarter, and it only got worse from there. Team USA dominated around the basket, shooting 67.5% on 2-point field goals and scoring 38 points in the paint. That is what happens when a defense overcommits. You can try to take one weapon away, but in doing so, you hand every other weapon a loaded invitation. The gaps Clark created by simply standing where she stood, by forcing defenders to shade her direction, by pulling attention away from the real action, that is what broke this game open. And here is the number that tells you everything. Clark posted a plus 18 inches, her 18 minutes. In Team USA's win, Clark posted 8 points and 2 assists while playing 18-37 against the host nation. Every minute she was out there, the United States was dominating. Not because she was scoring, but because every single defensive decision Puerto Rico made started and ended with one question: where is number 22? And by the time they figured that out, the damage was already done somewhere else. But exactly where? That is the part the box score does not tell you. When a defense bends itself out of shape trying to guard one player, there are always cracks. And this Team USA roster had the perfect players to exploit every single one of them. Paige Bueckers led the United States with 16 points, connecting on 7 of her 12 field goal attempts. She played 21 minutes and posted a team best plus 2.5. Those are not random numbers. They are the product of a defense stretched so thin that the soft spots were practically glowing. Bueckers read the zone like she had the answers in advance. She attacked the middle when Puerto Rico shaded toward Clark. She found gaps in the seams and punished every late rotation with surgical precision. While the defense panicked about Clark, Bueckers walked through the front door. And then there was Angel Reese. If Bueckers exploited the zone from the perimeter and mid-range, Reese destroyed it from the inside. Reese recorded a double-double in the win, scoring 10 points and grabbing a game-high 13 rebounds. She shot 50% on field goals while making her presence felt defensively, picking up 1 steal and 1 block. And here is the number that jumps off the page. 5 of those 13 boards came on the offensive glass. 5. That means 5 extra possessions, 5 broken defensive stands, 5 moments where Puerto Rico did enough to survive the first shot, only to get punished by a second chance they could not stop. Reese's 13 rebounds set a new United States record for rebounds during a Women's World Cup qualifying game, a record in only 16 minutes of playing time. That is not just hustle. That is a direct consequence of what was happening on the perimeter. When a zone reaches too far out to stop one player, the paint becomes a no-man's land. Box-outs get delayed, bigs are out of position, and a player like Reese, who thrives on physicality and relentless energy, turns that chaos into absolute punishment. Kelsey Plum was also a key contributor in the win, finishing with 12 points and 2 steals in just over 21 minutes. Add that to Bueckers and Reese, and you start to see the full picture. This was not one player going off. This was an entire team feeding off the defensive panic created by one player's gravity. And yet, the loudest conversation after this game had nothing to do with basketball strategy. It was about a high five. And that is where this story takes a turn nobody expected. Sometimes, the biggest storyline from a game has nothing to do with the final score. During Team USA's 91-48 victory over Puerto Rico, as Clark checked into the game during the second quarter, slapping hands with teammates with 4:56 left in the half, she came face-to-face with Reese, who had her hand extended. But Clark turned away and walked in the opposite direction. Every bit of the brief, cold interaction was caught on broadcast camera. The internet lost its mind. The biggest storyline, however, was the handshake snub heard around the world. Clips went viral within minutes. Fans picked sides. Commentators dissected every frame. And once again, the Clark-Reese rivalry was front and center. Now, rumors suggest this was intentional. It has been said that Clark and Reese have never truly buried the hatchet from their college days. Their first major clash came in the NCAA women's title game in 2023, when Reese celebrated late in LSU's victory by pointing to her ring finger in Clark's direction while making the "you can't see me" hand gesture. It sparked a loud and lengthy discourse surrounding the behavior. The tension followed them into the pros. During the 2024 season, several physical plays between the Fever and the Sky fueled conversation. One incident occurred when Reese committed a hard foul on Clark. Another confrontation occurred the following year during a tense Fever-Sky game. Reese pushed Indiana forward Natasha Howard while battling for an offensive board, and Clark fouled Reese before she could attempt a shot. Reese fell to the floor and quickly got back up to confront Clark. Officials reviewed the play and upgraded Clark's foul to a flagrant. And now they were supposed to be teammates. on the same roster, wearing the same jersey, and the first thing the cameras caught was a high five left hanging in mid-air. But here is what most people missed. Was it intentional? Or did Clark simply not see the outstretched hand in the chaos of a substitution? It is perfectly plausible, if not likely, that Clark just didn't see Reese's hand and missed. However, their long-standing rivalry is inevitably going to make people wonder if this was on purpose. And then something interesting happened later in the tournament. In their game against Spain, Clark and Reese even delivered a highlight play early. Clark was inbounding the ball and looking for one final play. She found Reese positioning herself under the basket and quickly got the ball to her. The Sky Star proceeded to make a tough hook shot. What happened next stood out more. Clark approached Reese and made sure to give her a high five. So, which is it? Real beef or manufactured drama? The truth is probably somewhere in between. But one thing is certain. When these two are on the same floor, every camera in the building is watching. And that might be the most powerful thing either of them brings to the table. Step back from the drama for a second and look at the bigger picture. Because what is happening with Team USA right now is bigger than any one rivalry or any one game. This is a generational shift, a complete changing of the guard, and the foundation being laid in Puerto Rico might define the next decade of women's basketball. The head coach of Team USA is Kara Lawson, the Duke women's basketball coach, with help from assistant coaches Natalie Nakase, Nate Tibbetts, Stephanie White, Jose Fernandez, and Tia Jackson. This is a new era, new leadership, new energy, and a roster loaded with players who have not even scratched the surface of their potential. Clark, Bueckers, Reese, Plum, Citron, Iriafen, these are not just names on a roster. These are the faces of what women's basketball is becoming. Bueckers reportedly called this Team USA group young and turnt, and the name stuck. Reese and several others embraced it immediately. And there is something powerful about a team that gives itself an identity before it has even played its first game. But here is what really made this roster click faster than anyone expected. 11 of the 12 players representing the US had just finished playing at Unrivaled. Whether they were teammates or opponents, they believed that time together lent itself to building quicker chemistry on Team USA. That chemistry was real. You could see it in the ball movement, in the trust, in the way players found each other without hesitation. This was not a collection of all-stars figuring things out. This was a unit that already spoke the same language, and the results speak for themselves. Clark averaged 11.6 points and 6.4 assists per game, making her the clear choice for tournament MVP. Taking USA to a 5-0 clean sweep, Clark impressed with her guard play as she returned to wearing a national team jersey for the first time since being MVP at the FIBA U19 Women's Basketball World Cup 2021. The road ahead is enormous. USA Basketball has already qualified for the World Cup, which is set for September 4, 13 inches, Berlin, Germany. She'll look to produce the same level of play at the FIBA Women's World Cup 2026 inches Berlin, with Team USA chasing their 12th title ahead of the LA 28 Olympic Games, Berlin, this September. Los Angeles in 2028. If this core stays healthy and stays together, the ceiling is not just high, it is terrifying for every other country trying to compete. And the foundation for all of it? It was built right here on a basketball court in San Juan during a game most people only remember for a box score they did not bother to understand. So, let us go back to where we started. 8 points, 2 assists, 6 shot attempts. That was the stat line. And for people who watch basketball through a spreadsheet, that is all they need to know. But if you actually watch this game, if you understood what was happening underneath the numbers, then you know the truth. Caitlin Clark did not need a scoring explosion to control this game. Her gravity bent the defense out of shape. Her presence forced panic before a play even started. And while Puerto Rico spent all night trying to contain one source of destruction, Bueckers carved up the gaps, Reese owned the glass, and the rest of Team USA walked through every crack the defense left behind. Clark averaged 11.6 points and 6.4 assists per game across the tournament, making her the clear choice for MVP. The woman who was held to 8 points in this game ended up being named the best player of the entire tournament. That is not a coincidence. That is a warning. If this team can demolish opponents by 43 when Clark is not even hunting shots, then the rest of the world better start asking the only question that matters. What happens when she decides to turn it on? Because that version of Team USA, nobody is ready for that. And honestly, that is exactly the point. Stay locked in with my channel Simply Explained, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.